about something that we've talked about before on multiple occasions, and I think it's an important topic, and that is the church. What is the church? Does the church comprise of the movement? Does the church comprise of the organization? And what if some of the people in the organization are evil? How do we address these things? And is the church the object of God's affection? Is God still blessing the Seventh-day Adventist movement? Is God still behind this movement? What do you guys say?
I believe he definitely is still behind this movement. We don't always do his bidding the way we should, but I do believe there's a big effort to do so. I mean, look at the outreach across the globe and the different groups within the big group that are out there spreading the gospel. That's because of God's blessing.
No, are you talking about the movement? And what about some of the corrupt? We have leaders here in Montana that I believe are spirit filled. All right. Now, I'm not speaking for the whole world, but I have in the past, and there's a few examples, even today, of some wayward leaders. Mm-hmm. Now, where does that leave us as far as the church? Should we throw the baby out with the bathwater? I remember years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. He's kind of an ex-Adventist. His reason for leaving the church was that one of the evangelists had said that the Muslim God was the same as the Christian God. All right. And he took that to mean, well, if he's a leader of the church, then that must be the way that everybody that's the way everybody believes in the church. And I reminded him, I says, look, that's not how I believe. Mm-hmm. That's not how I believe at all. Now, if a Muslim is worshiping God at the dictates of his own conscience, he don't know any better. Now, maybe that's what the pastor meant. I don't know.
So who was Paul? I believe it was Paul who was talking to the people, and they were a Gentile group, and he says, I'm here to the point of, to the God that you're worshiping. You worship these unknown gods. I'm just here to identify this God that you're worshiping.
The unknown God.
Yeah,
there was a particular, not God.
That was a statue. That was a monument that was dedicated, and it said to the unknown God. And he says, this is the God I preach unto you.
Yeah. That's it. And he was explaining to them that they worship the same God. But some people don't know him as we know him.
Well, the unknown God, because they didn't know the God that they were worshiping and ignorant.
They're covering their bases.
So he used that as a good example of like, well, the God that you don't know, he's the one that I worship.
Yes,
and this, I'm introducing you to him.
Right.
It was extremely clever on Paul's
It was
part.
very clever, and it was like, it was unknown. He was unknown to them, so it made sense.
It's a great example of evangelism and how we should approach it. When we're because these people at the time, they were very pagan. Mm-hmm. That was.
Well, he said that you guys were very religious because you have many gods.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I bring to you this God, which
is the unknown one.
Which is the unknown God that you worship in ignorance, but I'm going to tell you about him.
So we were talking a little bit earlier, Ricky, and you had sent me some videos last night, and I watched them.
Yeah, myself, I believe the church is going into apostasy. I don't believe that the church as a whole is the church. I believe that the members are the church. I don't believe the conference is the church at all. There's a lot of stuff that conference is allowing to creep into the church, and a lot of stuff that the church, I believe the people.
I think to apply what you're saying is salvation is not corporate.
No.
I am not corporate because I belong to the Adventist Church or the Baptist Church or the Catholic Church. Salvation is personal.
Yes.
And it will always be personal. So to that extent, I think you're right.
No, I do too. Thank you, Dave.
No, yeah, and I would have to agree with that. But what about if you're talking about, for example, like Israel? You know, when Jesus made these statements, like salvation is of the Jews. You know, and at that time, the church could not be more corrupt. You know, Israel.
But
could
they
not
have
be
the
more
truth.
corrupt.
And I'm not saying, I know the Adventists do have the truth. And I know God created this movement. There's no doubt about it.
It's loud, huh?
But just like Israel of old, they fall into apostasy every time. History always repeats itself. And I've seen so many things that I can't, to me, to deny it, I'd be a bold-faced liar, and I'm not going to be that way.
We know from the early beginnings of the church that this church was began by God. The organization was an organization that was formed through the workings of God. You know, we're told in Scripture that God likes organization, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, God is, yeah.
And so there's nothing, you know, and I think people get into this mindset where the organization is somehow bad because so many organizations are bad. And there are bad things that are happening in this organization.
Well, just like, okay, the leadership, was it the leadership then
Yeah.
that was bad? Was it the leader? Was they the organization?
No,
Were
I
they the
don't-
one to say,
No,
crucify him, and let a murderer go free? That was the organization.
I don't think, you know, without naming names, I don't think like the leader speaks for the whole body, you know, and he might set the tone, he might make policies, but I don't think that all of a sudden damns the entire body of leadership. For example, I just cited Montana. Now, the leadership here in Montana with Ken Norton, I think he's honestly, you know, I know him a little bit. And what he supports and what he stands for, I've gotten a little bit of an understanding, and he seems like a really spirit-filled, godly man, you know. And his mission to bring the gospel through the three angels message. You know, one of the things that he told me at camp meeting was that, hey, we're all just working together, you know, and the sooner we can get this message out, you know, the sooner we're out of here.
Amen.
You know, and so that's his mindset and that's his mission. He's part of the leadership. You know, he is literally the head of the conference here in Montana. Now that's 1/50th of the leadership.
Yeah, because we are human, bad things can creep in. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be on this earth.
Well, there was a Nicodemus. There was a
Nicodemus. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting.
But there was a Nicodemus.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, yeah, Joseph, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a few. There was you know, and so it's not beyond God to do that with some of these leaders.
Not even.
Now we were talking. You know, we don't know who, where the beginnings of some of these leaders are that then make bad decisions later on. You know, like the bringing in of Catholics to the general conference.
Yeah, but then churches, Stephen Bohr, because they invited Stephen Bohr, they took the church away. But yeah, they'll invite Catholics and they'll have rappers, and I don't know. We were reading about the bride going to be pure, clean, without wrinkle or spot. That's what Christ is coming for. And it seemed like when I first came in here that's what the church was like. But there's, I don't know, a big turnaround that's
Well, let me
been
ask you this question. Do you think all Seventh-day Adventists will be saved?
Of course not.
Of course not.
Well, and
There
I asked,
are tares growing up with the wheat.
yeah, the tares and the wheat grow together, and that's scriptural.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not talking about the world.
No,
and
it's
the
talking
church.
about the church.
The tares aren't the world.
No.
I mean, literally, the tares are in the church.
Yeah.
And which church? That's God's
True church.
anointed
Yeah.
last day.
Because the rest would be
church.
terrorists anyway.
Yeah.
Are
yeah,
there
they're
Catholics that
tares
will be saved?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah.
Same principle.
Same principle. But in the very last days now, historically, Catholics will be saved.
But yeah. Will
Historically.
they be Catholics when they're saved?
When we get to heaven, we will be of one accord.
Yeah. But no, I'm talking about the very last day movements, because the gospel is to go to the whole world. That's part of the third angel's message, is to come out of her, my people, come out of Babylon.
They
And
have to
so
come out, or else
there is a call.
or else you'll
What-
receive of her plagues.
Let me
or
ask
else.
this question. What's the purpose of the time of trouble? Which, by the way, we are in the beginnings of.
I believe so. I
It's
believe you're right.
For us to get down to what's real.
It's to separate.
Yeah.
Is it not?
It's a refining
We're
fire.
going to have two groups and two groups only
But
by
both
that time.
both groups are going to think they're the right ones again.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think there's a rebellious group that will go the totally opposite
They're
way.
definitely going the opposite way, but they will think
Yeah,
that
they're doing
God's
God's
will.
service.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe some of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ellen White did say that they would think that they were doing God's service. Now in Revelation,
The Bible even says that.
yeah, in Revelation we read of these two women. There's a harlot and then there's a pure church.
Yeah.
Now, the church, us individually, we always start out as the harlot. We're that filthy, sin-laden person, and God brings us out of it, and He redeems us, and He turns us into this perfect church through grace. But there's two classes. It doesn't give 5,000 religions in Revelation. It only gives two classes, and
But she has daughters. The harlot has daughters.
the harlot has daughters, but they all belong to the same mother. And so, in essence, you really have two types of people in the end days, and we're talking the very last days. We know there's more than that now, and they will all believe. Well, maybe not all, huh? Maybe
Well,
some
I
of them are
don't
just
know
innately
that we
evil.
will all believe everything exactly the same way
Yeah,
because we are still human.
yeah. There is a human element, and it's.
God looks at the heart.
But we believe that.
But the heart is deceitfully and wicked. It's nothing good in the heart.
As long as we're human, that's going to be the case.
So Christ has to be in our heart.
That's right.
Okay, so we know that unity. We were just studying unity. We know that unity is going to take place in God's true church, God's true followers. Let's put it that way.
And God's true
And-
followers are going to reflect God, because He is coming after a church that don't have wrinkle or spot. He's the purifying cleaner, just like we were doing the Bible study today. That woman, he bathes her and He cleanses her. He gets her ready, and she's perfect.
That kind of almost goes back to an ancient marriage ritual, doesn't it? Where they would go through these ritualistic cleansings and stuff prior to marriage.
Well,
But God's cleansing is a cleansing from sin.
yeah.
Prior to the marriage, and I guess the marriage takes place at His second coming, doesn't it?
Well,
When does that happen? Does it happen now, or is it second coming?
it would be because it comes down from heaven, adorned for her husband, and that would be like
Isn't that supper in heaven, the marriage supper,
yeah,
when we get to heaven?
yeah.
Yeah, the marriage supper's in heaven. We haven't talked about that enough. Maybe that'll be our next prophecy update.
And you're joining us,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
right? Apparently, we need some women in here, right?
Well, it is, something that we need to
Women
kind
with-
of
yeah.
intersperse, Yeah, we don't have enough women on our panels, do we? We got Linda, but she's not often able to join us. We got Ruth. We get her once a month. And then we get, who else? Lisa occasionally.
Well, we had Marla, unfortunately,
Yeah,
not
that's
no
right,
more
Marla.
for a while.
Yeah, no, she's not with us.
Darn it. We'll be soon, though, hopefully.
But,
Hopefully.
but this idea of, see, because I believe the organization and the movement both make up, that remnant church of God. Now, as time progresses, it might be less the movement and more the organization, or excuse me,
So
more the
shouldn't we be becoming more like Christ instead of more like the world?
Mm-hmm.
Just do a checkout and see if the church is becoming more like Christ or more like the world. Then make the decision.
Well, I
yourself.
see both.
Yeah, and I think as the closer we get to the end, the more that separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see both things taking place, to be honest. I see like the rap videos you gave me. He was showing me these videos of Adventists up there rapping on stage.
Pastor. There's been plenty of rock concerts, magic shows.
yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's not the Adventist church that I start, and that wasn't that really long ago when I came in. It's totally turned around.
But
Turned around.
But that's not Belgrade.
No, Belgrade, I like our little, you guys are a bunch of old school people.
Watch how you say old, will you?
I love you guys.
He says old, and he looks back at me.
I love old school because that's where it is, right? Right?
Yeah, well, we see we see that division taking place, and the division is even happening with entire churches.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
And we see the different things, the wheat and the tares starting to mature. I remember we had the same pasture for Morro Bay as we did for San Luis Obispo, kind of like what we have here, and the Morro Bay Church was spirit filled and lovely and. Very in-depth, God-filled Bible studies and prayer, and, everything was very reverent. But then we went to the San Luis church, same pasture, and they had a youth leader up there with long hair. There was a gal up there with a tambourine and just a T-shirt, no bra, beating on the tambourine, jumping up and down, rock
that's
music,
the stuff
guitars.
that I've been showing
It was
you.
standing room only. That place was packed. I mean, literally.
People are
standing room
loving it.
only.
The Adventists are loving it.
It's
They like it.
entertainment.
It's entertainment. You could hear the rock music from three blocks down.
that's rock.
We did not know that was coming from the church until we got up close.
Yeah.
And the doors were wide open. It was like,
Yeah.
It's getting bad though, Dave.
and that was back then. But
Yeah,
same
that was back
pasture,
then. It's getting
different
bad these days.
churches. What made the difference?
The members.
The members made the difference. Now,
Yeah. There's a reason we moved out of the city. In fact, we have been counseled, especially in the last days,
yeah.
to move out of the city. Why? That's the concentration of evil, or in the cities.
he's got a point.
Oh
away
yeah,
from
he's got
that.
a very good point.
Yeah.
Get out of it.
Some of these churches, is running that church down there, and he's a good leader. Now, I don't know what his congregation's like. Maybe that's a very different story now with the people. Maybe if they got an evil leader, they would just follow the leader just like that. Yeah. And maybe they would just follow suit. And, the fact that they've got a strong leader doesn't necessarily.
Well, there are people who I believe are called to go to the cities. That's their background. We had one evangelist here. What was his name?
Alverson.
Halverson. He could not wait to get out of the country and get out of here. Horrible. Get me back to the city. That was his calling. Some people have that calling we're supposed to go to all the world and preach the gospel, right?
When the time of trouble, I guess there are going to be gospel workers, right? It's in the last day event of Ellen White.
Yes.
Warning the cities.
I think it's much harder to maintain your Christian principles in that environment.
It's much, much harder. I mean, like Montana, it's, little churches. Yeah, you guys are old school, the old ways, but so much of the world is becoming like the world.
Yeah.
I mean, the church is becoming like the world, and it's sad, and it is in big cities and stuff like that, and it's, I don't know why it's going.
Many
well,
more
of course,
distractions. And if Satan can distract the people, he will.
well,
in
he
the
wants.
big cities, there are distractions everywhere you look.
Take a look at this. I like using this example. Satan's like a duck hunter, and he has his dog and stuff. There's a couple ducks up in the sky. He shoots. Boom. One comes twirling down right to the ground. Boom. Satan is going to run right past that duck because it's dead. This other one's kind of, flopping around and goes off into the weeds over there and is getting away. He's running. He's running after the wounded duck.
Mm-hmm.
So if God has a true church here on earth, where's Satan going to be
He's going to be gunning for the true one.
Yes.
Yeah.
He already has the
Already
dead
has
one.
the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's already got them.
Yeah.
So we would be ignorant to say, oh, no.
Well, okay, so what would you tell somebody that's coming into this church and maybe got discouraged because they saw some of these things that you're describing, Ricky? I mean, what's instruction for them? How do they deal with this?
You know, to read your Bible and let the
There
Lord
you
lead
go.
you and guide
Look
you.
only to Christ. Don't
Only
look
to
at
Christ.
others.
The only leader that we should be following.
Should they still
in
be a
these
member
last
of the
days.
church? Should they get out of the church and go to a Baptist church instead? Would you?
I let the Lord will guide him to where he's supposed to go, because there's probably some Seventh-day Adventist churches that aren't right for them to go to.
See, I'm of the opposite opinion on that. I think, and I just told a friend of mine. Remember I sent him a picture of this spirit that they took a picture of. You know, that this woman, a friend of mine's brother or a friend of mine's sister is being harassed from these demonic spirits, are just, I mean, they're really harassing her. You should see this picture. And the son called the mother up, and he's like, "Hey, Mom," and she's hysterical on the phone and everything. It's like, "It sounds like you're going crazy or something. I'll be right over there." And she's telling him about all these demons and stuff, and he wouldn't believe her. He's the one who took the picture. And so, but then Raymond's like, "Well, yeah, she's going to a church," and I said, "She needs to go to Seventh-day Adventist church. She needs to go to the church that knows better." And he says, "Well, what's wrong with just any old church?" I says, "Well, there's only one church that has the true message that can actually help her. And there may not be anybody in that church at the time or in that particular church that can help her, but it is the church that she will find help in."
Well, you know, when I first came to the Seventh-day Adventist church, I remember thinking, you know what? They all could be worshiping the devil or whatever they, you know, or be full of hate or whatever. I'm going to do it because I know it's the Lord's day, and they're the church that's doing it, and that's me. It was like, I don't care if any of them are true. I know I am, and I know this is the true day.
I'll be willing to bet you in every single church in this whole wide world, in every Adventist church, there is at least one spirit-filled person. I've seen it. I've been to hundreds of churches in my lifetime. And I mean, that used to be a pastime in California. We just drive around there's so many of them. And we just go to a different church every Sabbath. And you always find that one person
That's good, because
that is spirit-filled,
well, the Lord said, there's 7,000?
that haven't bowed their knee to Baal.
Yeah. I mean, Elisha thought he was the only one, because he felt like he was the only one. He didn't see the other ones. He was the only one, you know, in his eyes, but the Lord, he reserved himself some, and I don't know. We may be alone. We may feel alone. We may be having to go through it alone, but we're never alone, because the Lord is with us. He will feed us. He will provide, but the Lord has others as well.
I went to a church in Washington. I met, the whole church seemed very cold to me. But then at the end of the church service, I met Diane and, what's his name? Hooker. They used to be the head of the Adventist Frontier Mission. And they invited me to their home, and they were talking to me and everything else. And very godly people. And it was funny, they told me a story one time about how their daughter used to date bachelor's son. And the son has got a humor. He's got a sense of humor, and he used to call the house up. He says, "Yeah, this bachelor looking for a hooker." And so they told me that little joke. I thought it was kind of funny. But, you know, the whole church seemed really cold to me, but here's these spirit-filled people that just came out, you know, and I was able to greet them. But, you know, for somebody who's going to church and is discouraged, you know, you know, they need to know that this is the remnant church, and they need to know that there are people that they can find out there that can sympathize.
If you spend time in the scriptures, you will be able to identify that church because of their beliefs. There's so many things, and of course we start with the Sabbath. That's the big and the obvious.
That's the big and the obvious.
But there are other issues, and if they speak not according to this word, is because there is no light in them. That's the test for prophet, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also the test for the church.
To the law and to the testimony.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the Lord God be our leaders. Don't trust men, no matter who
Yeah.
they are. No matter if they're Doug Batcher or Stephen Bohr or whoever. Trust the Lord, because we're in the last days and we can't trust anyone
Yeah.
but the Lord.
Yeah, and anybody that is following God will also say the same. You know, they won't have any problem with that at all. Yeah, beware of the teachers when they come to you
Yeah.
in sheep's clothing.
Because they will. And they won't be sparing the flock. They want disciples after themselves, and they want to give the people what they want. They want to please them. And you can't. The word has never been popular. It's never been opened with, I don't know.
Well, with that, we will sign off. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure and check us out on our Sabbath School. Check us out on Facebook, Rumble, some of the other platforms as well. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.